Have you ever felt like everything was going great with a guy until suddenly he pulled away, got quiet, or threw some weird emotional curveball at you? It's not always a red flag. In fact, what if I told you that might be the moment he's falling for you? Men don't always say they're catching feelings. They show it through behavior, and sometimes without even realizing it, they start testing the connection. Not to play games, but to find out something crucial. Can I trust her with my heart? Can I be me with her, flaws and all? You see, when a man starts to feel deeply, his need for emotional safety increases, and instead of asking for reassurance, he watches. He creates little emotional check-ins. For instance, he might share something vulnerable, not to be dramatic, but to see how you react. Will you dismiss it? Will you judge him? Or will you hold space for it? Other times, the test shows up when he pulls away briefly, not because he's losing interest, but because he wants to know. Will you chase him? Will you panic? Or will you stay grounded, calm, and let him have space without losing your center? And if you've ever been confused in those moments, wondering if he's losing interest or just testing the waters, make sure you stay with me till the end, because we're breaking down exactly how to respond in a way that builds deeper connection instead of emotional chaos. A man's tests are not a sign he's playing you, they're a sign he's choosing you carefully, because love feels high stakes when it's real. So he's watching how you react to pressure, to truth, to silence. He wants to see if you'll honor your own needs while still staying open to his. He wants to know if you're emotionally available without being emotionally reckless. That's the real test. Can you love without losing yourself? Can you meet his depth without sinking into insecurity? Have you ever wondered why a man who seems deeply into you suddenly pulls away, goes quiet, or becomes unpredictable right when things feel like they're turning serious? It's not just confusion, and it's not a game. It's something far more revealing. When a man is falling for you, he doesn't just fall. He tests, not out of strategy, but from a deep, unconscious need to feel whether what he's experiencing is safe, real, and worthy of surrender. What he tests isn't your beauty, your charm, or your promises. It's your emotional truth. And how you respond speaks louder to him than any spoken words of love ever could. When a man begins to fall for a woman, something profound stirs within the deeper layers of his unconscious mind. He doesn't just see her as she is, he starts to project an image onto her. A deeply ingrained vision shaped by years of memory, longing, cultural influences, and symbolic ideals of the feminine. This inner vision is not always something he's fully aware of, but it lives within him like a hidden map of the partner his soul has yearned for. When the woman in front of him reflects even a glimpse of this vision, something awakens in him, an attraction that feels destined, intense, and deeply personal. The emotions that arise are not only admiration for who she is in reality, but a kind of resonance with this inner ideal. This unconscious projection causes him to respond to her in ways that may not seem logical or straightforward. He starts to test her, not with intent or manipulation, but as a way to sense if the woman before him matches the feeling inside him. He might unknowingly place her in situations where her reaction helps him confirm or question what he's been sensing. He may stir emotional moments to see if she responds with tenderness, anger, patience, or distance. Not to control her, but to discover if what he feels lines up with who she truly is. His psyche is trying to reconcile the dream and the reality. These tests are rarely planned or clear, but they hold deep symbolic meaning for him. When he notices a conflict between the ideal and the real, a tension forms inside him. It causes confusion, mixed messages, and emotional shifts. He might find himself both drawn to her and pulling away at the same time, unsure if his feelings can be trusted. This internal split causes him to push her through subtle emotional filters to see if she genuinely reflects the image he holds within. He might not even be aware he is doing this. And to be clear, it's not the woman he's measuring, it's the mirror he thinks she is. If she acts in a way that resonates with his deeper longing, his emotions deepen. But if she consistently shatters the ideal, he might withdraw. not because she is wrong for him, but because the illusion has broken and reveals something too real, too intricate, too human for him to fully process. This process reveals how much inner imagery shapes real-world intimacy. A man falling in love isn't just choosing a partner. He's awakening to parts of himself through her, and the tests he creates become emotional checkpoints to help him move through that process. So falling in love becomes a journey, not just with her, but with unknown parts of himself. When a man starts to feel something deeper for a woman, there's an unconscious stirring that brings his hidden emotional layers closer to the surface. These are parts of himself that he may not fully understand or accept. They're called the shadow. The repressed fears, doubts, unspoken desires, and emotional wounds buried within. Love brings vulnerability, and that vulnerability invites these shadows to rise. Often, without even knowing it, he begins testing the woman emotionally, not because he wants to hurt or confuse her, but because love brings discomfort and fear. He may subtly challenge her trust, question her loyalty over minor issues, or withdraw affection just long enough to observe how she reacts. These actions are not planned, they're instinctual defenses, triggered by his own uneasiness about being emotionally exposed. At the core of it, his unconscious is asking, can she stay steady when I'm not? Can she hold space for the parts of me I don't show the world? Will she leave if I show her my emotional mess? These tests are not reflections of her worth, but of his inner insecurity. He watches her responses during moments of tension or emotional uncertainty. If she meets those moments with grounded patience, emotional depth, or steady presence, a quiet part of him begins to relax. If she reacts with rage, accusations, or abandonment, it might confirm his unconscious fear that his inner world is too messy to be loved. These challenges also reveal something more. They test her emotional depth. He's looking for a signal that she can stay with emotional discomfort, that she can navigate his internal chaos without falling into her own. These moments aren't about power or control, they are about containment. His psyche is searching for someone who can meet his storms without losing herself. The emotional friction he creates is less about conflict and more like a sacred fire, a burning away of shallowness in search of something honest and raw. She might believe he's challenging her worth, but in truth, he's confronting his own. This isn't just a man falling in love. It's a man facing the mirror. And whether he stays or steps away depends on how those tests are met. Not with perfection, but with understanding. In this space, love is not fantasy. It becomes alchemy. The emotional tests aren't a contest. They're invitations. They ask, can this relationship hold space for the truth, the shadow, the humanness neither of them fully understands yet? When a man starts to feel something real for a woman, he also begins sensing the shape and strength of her emotional and personal boundaries. Not because he wants to tear them down, but because he needs to feel safe. The masculine heart, when it opens to closeness, often carries hidden fears, fears of losing autonomy, of being consumed, or of vanishing into the relationship. Without saying it, he gently leans into the edges of her emotional space, checking for strength. He might make teasing remarks that challenge her self-worth, delay his replies, cancel plans without warning, or offer vague communication. Not to hurt her, but to observe. If she overgives, tries too hard to keep his interest, or sacrifices her peace to please him, it signals to his unconscious that she may not have a solid center. That unnerves him, even if he's not aware of why. But if she calmly holds her boundaries, expresses her needs with clarity, and keeps her emotional rhythm steady, something in him quiets down. He begins to trust her. Not because of anything she says, but because her self-respect mirrors back to him a sense of stability. Her groundedness tells him that if he leans in more emotionally, she won't lose herself or ask him to lose himself either. He wants to know that her heart is open, but her spine is strong. These tests are subtle, but they matter. He may act in ways that seem inconsistent just to feel out her response. If she communicates with self-worth instead of panic, if she speaks her truth instead of playing games, he begins to see her as emotionally safe. Safe not because she never gets upset, but because she doesn't let his storms dismantle her center. It is not about manipulation, it is the unconscious search for balance. Love brings up fear, especially when it's real. His masculine core wants to know, can I open to this without losing myself? A woman's boundaries, emotional, physical, energetic, become his answer. Not because they block him, but because they give him something solid to trust. He doesn't want to control her. He wants to feel that she can withstand the depth of his vulnerability without collapsing, attacking, or disappearing. When she can lovingly, calmly hold her ground through his subtle emotional tests, it sends a quiet but powerful message. It says, I can love you without abandoning me. And that's the message that speaks directly to the part of him that's always been scared of disappearing inside love. Her presence becomes the safety he didn't know he was looking for. So when a man starts falling in love, an inner conflict often begins. But that conflict isn't necessarily a sign that something is wrong. It means something real is waking up inside him. And with that awakening comes fear, shadow, projection, and the urge to test. Not because he wants to break her, but because he wants to believe. Believe that what he feels is real, that what he's stepping into is safe, that who she is can meet all of who he is, even the parts he's still learning to accept himself. Between the desire to move closer and the fear of losing himself in that closeness, a quiet battle often unfolds within him. This inner conflict often shows up as withdrawal, a subtle and sometimes confusing retreat that can leave the woman wondering what went wrong. But this behavior isn't always a conscious choice. It often rises from a deeper psychological urge to test the emotional waters without fully stepping into them. His pulling away isn't always rejection. It's often a reflection of uncertainty brewing inside. He wants to know if the emotional space he's about to enter can stay whole even when he's not constantly filling it. He might suddenly feel distant, take longer to respond, cancel plans, or seem less involved in conversations. On the surface, it might look like fading interest, but beneath it, something more careful is happening. He's quietly watching how she responds to his absence. Does she become anxious, try to chase him, lash out? Does she ever love him? Or does she stay grounded, calm, and emotionally steady? Her response speaks volumes to him, not just about her actions, but about the emotional foundation underneath them. His withdrawal becomes a kind of emotional mirror. He isn't trying to manipulate her, he's searching for something real. He wants to know if her affection is rooted in genuine connection or in fear of abandonment. If she can trust him, even when he steps back. If she can give space without falling apart. He needs to feel that his stepping away, temporary though it may be, won't unravel everything or trap him in a role he isn't yet ready for. That fear may come from old wounds, or deeper resistance to vulnerability where love in the past led to loss, heartbreak, or a crumbling sense of self. His retreat is like the tide pulling back before deciding whether to come ashore again. If she holds that space with grace, remaining emotionally steady without blaming, punishing, or pleading, it tells him something rare, that she carries an inner stability strong enough to hold the weight of real emotional closeness. But if she reacts with insecurity, blame, or emotional neediness, it often confirms his quiet fear that closeness leads not to peace but to emotional chaos or entrapment. His stepping back is rarely about her alone. It's about assessing whether the space between them is emotionally breathable. Not a tactic, but a protective reflex. A way for him to pause, breathe, and process the growing intensity of his feelings. Love, especially in its fragile early stages, can feel like falling with no ground. Pulling back is his way of grabbing the edge for a moment. It gives him time to sort out his emotions, to feel out whether this connection will nurture or consume him. Her response in that space becomes not just a reaction, but a reflection of the emotional atmosphere he's stepping into. And it quietly determines whether he moves closer with trust or folds back further into emotional distance. As a man falls for a woman, he becomes increasingly attuned to how she handles emotional turbulence, not just her own, but his too. The deeper the connection grows, the more he unconsciously tests her emotional steadiness, not to harm her, but to see how grounded she stays when the waters get rough. Life isn't smooth all the time, and emotional steadiness becomes one of the most sacred traits in a partner. It shows him who can ride through life's storms without crumbling. Whether he realizes it or not, he starts to look for this. He might stir small conflicts, contradict himself, or create subtle moments of tension, not as games, but as unconscious expressions of his need to know. Will she stay emotionally present when things are not ideal? He may seem irritable, withdrawn, or even emotionally unavailable for short stretches, not because he wants to hurt her, but because he is battling his own internal storms. And how she reacts in these moments speaks to him more than anything she could ever say. If when things get shaky, she can hold her own truth, stay calm, and respond with kindness or firm clarity, he sees in her someone emotionally safe, someone who won't punish him for his emotional pauses, someone who can hold emotional contrast, joy and tension, presence and space, without demanding perfection or constant harmony. That quiet strength is not just attractive, it's deeply reassuring. It tells him that when life gets messy, when things don't go as planned, she'll be the kind of partner who doesn't unravel or strike out. That kind of emotional maturity gives him peace, the kind that softens his defenses and allows him to lean in. But if she meets tension with panic, blame, or emotional outbursts, he may start to close off, not because he doesn't care, but because something inside tells him that this space may not be safe for the full depth of real intimacy. Emotional resilience doesn't mean being stoic or cold. It means being able to feel deeply without getting drowned. He is instinctively drawn to women who can walk through emotional chaos without becoming chaotic, who can face letdowns without turning bitter, who can love without needing control. These subtle moments, these tests he doesn't always know he's giving, are not about judgment. They help him understand the shape of her emotional world. How does she carry herself when the connection wobbles? Does her love stretch to hold uncertainty, or does it collapse under fear? Through these moments he starts to understand if she can truly be an emotional partner, not just for pleasure, not just for ease, but for the entire truth of a shared life. When a man is truly beginning to fall, one of the most revealing things he does, often without knowing it, is start to show her his flaws, his cracks, his insecurities. Not in dramatic confessions, but in small, quiet ways. He may let something slip in conversation or open up in ways that seem out of character. These moments matter, not because of what he says, but because of what he's risking by saying it. He's letting her see parts of him that don't align with his confident exterior. The uncertain, messy, sometimes wounded parts. And what he's silently asking is this: can you love all of me? Not just the charming surface, but the human underneath. These admissions might be soft, a failed dream, a fear he's carrying, a hesitation around love, but they symbolize something large. He is testing whether she sees the man or only the mask. In those tender moments, he's watching closely, not just her words, but her tone, her pauses, the look in her eyes. He listens for even the smallest signs of discomfort or judgment, because if she only welcomes him when he's polished and confident, he will quietly retreat, not always in that moment, but eventually, because his deepest fear is that intimacy equals exposure, and exposure leads to pain. Even if he brushes it off after, makes a joke, changes the subject, he remembers her response. That memory becomes a quiet marker in his mind of how emotionally safe or unsafe he feels around her. For him, love is not just about being seen, it's about being held. Can she witness his truth without needing to fix it? Can she hear his pain without backing away? These aren't questions he says out loud, but they shape the way he opens or doesn't. A woman's ability to hold his vulnerability with presence and grace tells him that she's capable of loving not just the version of him the world sees, but the whole man. That moment, when he shows something imperfect and watches how she holds it, is often one of the most defining in their connection. It quietly tells him whether this love can grow in truth or whether it must stay trapped in performance, curated to avoid rejection. As he falls deeper, his behavior speaks in symbols, guided not just by words but by deep-seated patterns of desire, fear, and longing. What might look like contradiction or distance is rarely about games. It's about the soul's search for safety, truth, and real emotional connection. These unspoken moments of testing are not about proving her worth. They're about discovering whether the space they're building can hold something real. A bond that can stretch through silence, through conflict, through shadow, and still return home to truth. He's not seeking perfection, he's seeking presence, emotional awareness, a kind of quiet inner strength that makes real intimacy feel safe. He wants to know if her love can meet the whole man, not just his light, but also his dark. These unseen trials aren't about winning or failing, they're about revealing, and how she responds, not just with her words, but with her energy, tells him everything. In that space he sees whether what they have is a passing spark or the first quiet breath of something sacred.